All right, that's enough of that BS. Okay, so nothing in trucking makes any sense while brokers exist. All right, I watched this video and it was purely based on emotion. There was no data behind it, no real world anything, right? Strictly emotional. Basically, brokers are middlemen that we don't need. Trucking is in the dumps because of brokers. Really? Okay. Let's break a couple of things down. I'm not going to go into everything in a ton of detail, but I'm going to cover a few basic things that I think will be a little bit insightful, at least, to hopefully you won't be one of those that follow into the fear mongering and the finger pointing for no reason, because it's easy to point the finger, right? When things in life go bad, when business is bad, it's very easy to point the finger, right? We've seen carriers and brokers fall by the wayside, okay, in this last downturn in the market, as we always do. Traditionally, I think it's more carriers than brokers, but this time I think that number is not quite so far apart, right? We've seen some big brokerages go under. We've seen some big carriers go under, owner ops, small brokers, so to say that brokers more or less are unneeded, let's look at some things here, okay? And I'm sure I'm going to start to see some light bulbs go off. If you have 50 loads in an area and there's 100 trucks, what do you think happens to freight rates? I'll wait. If you don't have your own direct customers, how can you possibly speculate what brokers are making on loads, right? We just recently did a video on this, what the average broker profit margin is per load, okay? I should leave a link for that, but I don't, honestly, I'm so PO'd right now, I just don't even want to pull it up, but it's there, okay? Just look for me going like this in the thumbnail. Okay. But it's a lot of fear mongering. There's no data behind it. It's entirely emotional driven, right? You have to understand that there are shippers out there that don't want to handle the volume of calls from all the carriers, go through the entire vetting process on their own. They either don't have the staff, they don't have the technology, or they just flat out don't want to deal with it, right? That's why they use brokers, right? As soon as you understand that, the better off you'll be. I guarantee you. Another thing that was mentioned in this video was that there is no synergy. There can't be relationships between carriers and brokers. I call BS. I have some very good relationships personally with carriers. Some of them are no longer in the industry for one reason or another, but we still talk on a fairly regular basis. You know, how's the family? How's the kids? You know, how's the grandkids? Things like this. How's the wife? You know, few laughs. They usually ask me, you know, hey, how's things going in the industry? Blah, blah, blah. In fact, I can think of one individual out on the West Coast. I'm not going to call him out or anything. He ended up having to get out because of knee surgery. He had to have both of his knees replaced, and he had some other medical issues and things going on. But we worked together for a very long time. We had a very good working relationship, and we ended up getting to be fairly decent friends, in my opinion, right? We still keep in touch. There should not be an us versus them mentality. It does nobody any good. What is the point of it? I'd love to hear about it. Why? How does it benefit anybody to have an us versus them mentality? Whether you're a carrier or a broker, I'd love to see the comments on this. I would love to hear it. How does it benefit you to not have a good network and a good relationship, regardless of what side of the table you're on? Right? Carriers are suffering in this video basically because freight brokers are dictating freight rates. Well, for those of you that have been in the industry longer than 30 seconds, you know that that's not true. And if you still believe that, you should go back and do a little more research. Okay? It boggles my mind. It makes my head hurt to listen to, riling up the masses and getting everybody pointing fingers because things go bad, right? And I use this example, and it's not the only one. It's just one that I guess kind of typically sticks out in my head for whatever reason. If we go back to 2018, when the ELD mandate went into effect, right? When that went into effect of January of that year, there was all these carriers going, well, I'm too close to retirement. I'm not dealing with an ELD, right? There was this big widespread fear of, a capacity crunch. There weren't enough drivers. There weren't enough trucks. There weren't enough, there just overall wasn't enough capacity to handle the volume of freight that was available out there. Okay. So what ended up happening, right? This is a fairly recent history lesson, basically, for those of you that weren't around at that time. What happened is, and I didn't really have any problem covering freight, right? I don't know that there was really truly the capacity crunch, at least not to the extent that we were led to believe by the industry media, right? Which is why even with some of the data and things and articles, I tend to take that with a grain of salt. I really, truly do, but I digress. So what ended up happening? Well, we saw fleet owners, right? Companies buying up more trucks, more trailers, hiring drivers. We saw company drivers going out filing for their own authority, getting their own truck, trailer, etc., across the board. Well, inevitably, what do you think happens? We went from freight here, capacity here, to by the time we got to like 2019, capacity was here, freight stayed here. So what happened? The market rates dropped. Okay? And during that period of 2018, when we had previously been moving refrigerated freight out of the West Coast for about $3.50 a mile, right? Refrigerated freight. So don't come back at me because I've seen previous comments of, well, I run a dry van. I didn't see $3.50 a mile. Well, okay, you're talking apples and oranges there, right? Freight rates went up $6, $8 a mile outbound, right? But you would get instances where carriers were demanding no less than $10, $12 a mile, $9 a mile, right? They were gouging. Okay. So to the fear mongers out there putting out all this misinformation and hate and synergy just can't happen between brokers and carriers and all of this and that, was that okay? Was that okay for you to gouge the industry, to gouge shippers, to gouge brokers? I'll wait. Right? But you guys are the same ones, and I'm not saying all carriers, right? I'm saying that these people that put out this content that, spreads all this hate and discontent toward each other, right? At the same time, you didn't prepare for the downturn in the industry. Everybody that knows, that's been in the industry for any length of time, that there is an ebb and a flow, right, to things historically. So about every 3 to 3.5 years, there is a downturn in the market. But for those of you that were new, that got in when things were good, and you went out and bought a new boat, you got your wife some new clothes and some new jewelry, and you did this and you did that, you financed the truck, and who cares about the interest rate because I'm making all this money and everything. The minute the market rate dropped, you went, damn brokers, you brokers, you're destroying the industry. You can't handle us succeeding. You're right. Okay. Right? Because brokers, we all, oh, by the way, we all have these secret meetings where we all gather once a week, Saturdays at midnight or something. I forget exactly what it was. I haven't been to a meeting in forever. And we all wear our robes and hoods, and we chant, and we get out our little Ouija boards, and we do this and that, and we plot and we plan, right? How can we screw over carriers? How can we? We dictate the industry. You're all just puppets. You're all just puppets. Get out of here. Are you out of your mind? Are you that big of a conspiracy theorist? Get an education. I'll pretty much leave it at that. But I'm gonna leave you with one last example. I had a lane from a direct customer, right, prior to the downturn in the industry that we were running for $1,800. I talked to my long-term carrier, which we had been running this lane daily off the spot for this customer, right? And it was a big customer. And I said, hey, they want to offer this to us, dedicated, and they would like me to keep you on this, right? Which I would want to do anyway, because I value our relationship. A broker who values a relationship with a carrier? That's unheard of. Well, it happened, right? And it happens for me almost daily. So I said, are you good with that rate? Do you need more? Where are we at? So we had, I believe it was, Zoom meeting and everything. We went over everything. I shared emails from the customers so that, they were completely on board with what was going on with everything between myself and the shipper, right? Everything went great. We had the contract for the year. Well, then the shipper came back and went, no, we want to renegotiate this quarterly. Okay. Reach out to my carrier. Hey, here's the situation. I forward the email to him so that he knows that I'm not in any BS. He goes, Timmy, he says, you don't have to keep forwarding me this stuff. He says, I believe you, right? We've been working together for several years. I said, okay. I said, I just want to be, transparent with you with everything. Well, we came down on the rate a little bit, right? We both trimmed our margins on things where we felt was fair. He knew what I was making on the load, went back to the customer, said, here's what we can do. Okay, fine. And we did that every quarter for that first year. We renewed the agreement for the first quarter of the following year, right, of the new year. We started it, and then all of a sudden, I believe it was on a Wednesday, they emailed me that evening and said, don't pick up tomorrow. Okay, did something happen? Is the load not ready? What's going on? No, we just don't want to do this lane with you guys anymore. No rhyme, no reason, right? Just we're yanking it. Okay. So because I still moved other spot loads and things through this customer. I still had access to their system. What do you think happened to their rate on their board? Because they worked with myself and carriers directly, right, to cover their loads. What do you think happened to that lane? They were still moving it Monday through Friday, right? Now remember, we were getting $1,800 on this load when we started. They were posting it up. They would not negotiate on the rates, whether you were a broker or a carrier. They listed it for $900 and they were covering it every day. Who's the devil? Right? Now you could point fingers at the shipper. You could point fingers at the carrier saying, well, you guys are beating each other up. If you guys just quit pulling it at, for 900 and scrambling after it, eventually they'll have to push their rates back up, right? Just depending upon your point of view, right? And I'll leave that up to you. But brokers don't dictate the market. That is like just, and I hear this from time to time, and it astounds me. The lack of education, the lack of true industry knowledge, the lack of data, right? And they just get on there and they just start spewing, right? Their bleeding heart because they didn't prepare, because they, for downturn in the market, because they just would rather point fingers than to accept responsibility or understand supply and demand, right? I'll quit my ranting now, but let me know your comments, right? Again, we have links for my recommended tools and services in the description below. I appreciate everybody's subscription, that likes, shares, subscribes. You guys mean the world to me. You really do. Without you, obviously, I wouldn't be here. And I really do put out this content, and I have the Facebook group, and I do everything as kind of my way of paying it forward for those that helped me years ago when I first got in, right? So I wouldn't come on here and BS you guys with anything intentionally, right? I don't want to see anybody falling into that trap that because business or life is bad, that we get into this idea of pointing fingers, right? And forgetting about all of the essentials that help us become successful. Networking, right? Using the right tools and services, building relationships, right? All of these things are beneficial to our long-term success. Okay. I'll leave you guys with that. I look forward to seeing your comments down below. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. Again, if you'd like to email me directly, anything that you'd like to share, freightmasterresources@gmail.com. Till next time, be kind to one another. Bye-bye now.